How the Camel Got His Hump is a short story by Rudyard Kipling from a book Just So Stories, 1902. Outline of the story. The story. When the animals began to work for man. The camel lived in a desert because he was idle and refused to help. The dog, the horse and the ox all urged him to join in their work. But he only answered Humphrey. They complained to the man, who said he was sorry, but they would just have to work longer hours themselves. Then they complained to the Djinn in charge of all deserts. So the Djinn went to see the camel and told him to work. But still all he would say was Humphrey. The Djinn made a magic that puffed up the camel's back into a humph, or hump, and condemned him to work for 3 days without eating, living on his hump instead, to make up for the days he had missed. He still has his hump. He never did make up the lost time. And he still behaves badly. Now let's listen to the complete story. How the Camel Got His Hump. Now this is the next tale, and it tells how the camel got his big hump. In the beginning of years, when the world was so new and all, and the animals were just beginning to work for man, there was a camel, and he lived in the middle of a howling desert because he did not want to work. And besides, he was a howler himself. So he ate sticks and thorns and tamarisks and milkweed and prickles. Most excruciating idle, and when anybody spoke to him he said Humphrey. Just Humphrey. And no more. Presently the horse came to him on Monday morning, with a saddle on his back and a bit in his mouth, and said, "Camel, oh camel, come out and trot like the rest of us." "Humphrey," said the camel, and the horse went away and told the man. Presently the dog came to him, with a stick in his mouth, and said, "Camel, oh camel, come and fetch and carry like the rest of us." "Humphrey," said the camel, and the dog went away and told the man. Presently the ox came to him, with the yoke on his neck and said, "Camel, oh camel, come and plough like the rest of us." "Humphrey," said the camel, and the ox went away and told the man. At the end of the day the man called the horse and the dog and the ox together, and said, "Oh three, I'm very sorry for you, with the world so new and all. But that Humphrey thing in the desert can't work, or he would have been here by now, so I am going to leave him alone. And you must work double time to make up for it." That made the three very angry, with the world so new and all, and they held a palaver, and an indaba, and a panchayat, and a powwow on the edge of the desert. And the camel came chewing on milkweed most excruciating idle, and laughed at them. Then he said Humphrey, and went away again. Presently there came along the Djinn in charge of all deserts, rolling in a cloud of dust. Jinns always travel that way because it is magic. And he stopped to palaver and pow-pow with the three. "Djinn of all deserts," said the horse, "is it right for anyone to be idle, with the world so new and all?" "Certainly not," said the Djinn. "Well," said the horse, "there's a thing in the middle of your howling desert, and he's a howler himself, with a long neck and long legs. And he hasn't done a stroke of work since Monday morning. He won't rot." "Phew," said the Djinn, whistling. "That's my camel. For all the gold in Arabia. What does he say about it?" "He says Humphrey," said the dog, "and he won't fetch and carry." "Does he say anything else?" "Only Humphrey, and he won't plough," said the ox. "Very good," said the Djinn. "I'll humph him if you will kindly wait a minute." The Djinn rolled himself up in his dust cloak, and took a bearing across the desert, and found the camel most excruciatingly idle, looking at his own reflection in a pool of water. "My long and bubbling friend," said the Djinn, "what's this I hear of your doing no work, with the world so new and all?" "Humphrey," said the camel. The Djinn sat down, with his chin in his hand, and began to think a great magic, while the camel looked at his own reflection in the pool of water. "You've given the three extra work ever since Monday morning, all on account of your excruciating idleness," said the Djinn, and he went on thinking magics, with his chin in his hand. "Humphrey," said the camel. "I shouldn't say that again if I were you," said the Djinn. "You might say it once too often. Bubbles, I want you to work." And the camel said Humphrey again, but no sooner had he said it than he saw his back, that he was so proud of, puffing up into a great big lolloping humph. "Do you see that?" said the Djinn. "That's your very own humph that you've brought upon your very own self by not working. Today is Thursday, and you've done no work since Monday, when the work began. Now you are going to work." "How can I," said the camel, "with this humph on my back?" "That's made a purpose," said the Djinn, "all because you missed those 3 days. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating, because you can live on your humph. And don't you ever say I never did anything for you. Come out of the desert and go to the tree. And behave. Humphrey yourself." And the camel humphed himself, humph and all, and went away to join the tree. And from that day to this the camel always wears a humph. We call it hump now, not to hurt his feelings. But he has never yet caught up with the 3 days that he missed at the beginning of the world. And he has never yet learned how to behave. End of the story. Thank you.